Hello and welcome to the latest series of Stories of China Retold in English. My name is Chloe and today we will be studying Mencius'Mother moves 3 times. We've already considered many different situations in which you might retell a Chinese story. As usual, in this lesson, our aim is to be able to condense this story and then be able to retell it during a conversation with an English person. President Xi said in a 2019 conference that when it comes to transmitting China's ideas to the world, telling stories is the best form of international dissemination. He continued to suggest the relationship between China and the rest of the world is undergoing historic changes. China needs to understand the world better, and the world needs to understand China better. It is clear that the President of China has strong views about telling stories, but why do you think that developing the ability to retell Chinese stories in English is important? I would like you to take a few minutes to write down at least 3 reasons why you think developing the ability to retell Chinese stories in English is beneficial. Once you have your answers, come back to me. Off you go. Hi, how did you get on? I've also written down some reasons why I think it's beneficial to be able to talk about Chinese stories to foreign friends. Number 1, speaking from a personal point of view. Whilst growing up, I learned very little about China. The stories we learn provide a lot of facts about some of the most prolific figures in China from past and present. Number 2, the stories give an insight into the character of Chinese people and why they think and act in certain ways. The stories talk about Confucius, Mencius, and Taoism or Taoism, to name a few, all of which have had a significant influence on how people in China behave today. Number 3, the fictional Chinese stories offer explanations as to why certain traditions and events take place in China. It allows a foreigner a chance to understand why, for example, firecrackers are used in the Chinese New Year, or why dragon boats are raced down a river. Number 4, the stories also talk about newer modern inventions and pass us an opportunity to learn about the technological advancements in China from something other than foreign media, which is not always totally accurate. Number 5, in general, hearing Chinese stories from Chinese people is an engaging and exciting way to learn about a country that seems like, to many people outside of Asia, a very mysterious place. For me, having conversations with Chinese people is intriguing, and if I have any extra questions, I can be sure that their answers will be first-hand rather than the information that has been passed on and edited, or which can be slightly biased due to the influence of media. Here are my reasons. I think it's important that we regularly remind ourselves while we are participating in this course. You are not just learning how to retell stories, you are learning life skills to help with English conversation and public speaking. So on to today's session. We're going back to basics and consider how to bring the story of Mencius's mother moves 3 times into a conversation at school. So first, as always, let's take some time to condense the story in the book. Once you have completed the story, press play so we can continue the lesson. I would like you to focus on the following points in order to extract the important information. Okay, what have you got? Well, I also have written a summary. Would you like to hear mine? Here you go. Over 2,000 years ago, A boy named Mencius lived a hard life with his mother in a deprived area of China. His father was dead and his mother weaved cloth to make ends meet. One day, looking out onto the surrounding graveyard, Mencius's mother saw her son and his friends imitating the wails of mourners and playing mourning games. She could not see a bright future for her child if they were to continue living in this environment. So she moved them to a busy market town nearby. However, when Mencius started to mimic the cries of adults pretending to do business and haggle with prices, she was still not happy with the environment. They moved again. The third area was far away. The only attraction of the village was the butcher's shop, where Mencius learned nothing but how to slaughter animals. Still not satisfied, Mencius's mother moved them for a third time, their final destination being a quaint village nearby a respected school and gentlemanly teacher. At long last, Mencius's mother was happy. Mencius began to learn proper reading and writing. He was finally in the perfect environment. However, Mencius grew lazy and dissatisfied. He started to skip classes at school. Upon discovering her son's poor behaviour, she called him over to her weaving frame. Angrily, she picked up a pair of scissors and cut her precious piece of cloth in two, stating, "Your giving up your studies is like cutting the cloth halfway through. Your previous efforts are wasted." Mencius was extremely upset with himself. From that moment, he applied himself diligently to his studies and promised his mother that she would one day be proud of him. From this story, we can learn many things. We see firstly the mother's dedication and drive to provide her son with a positive and nurturing environment, regardless of the sacrifices and difficulties she would face. Secondly, we see how, upon sensing his mother's disappointment, Mencius devoted himself to his studies in order to satisfy her. Mencius was to become a representative of Confucius and a prolific figure in the spreading of Confucianism. This story continues to inspire the strong mother-son relationships in China, which reminds us that mother's teaching and son's filial duty play crucial roles in any successful family. Phew, that was a long summary, right? It's quite normal for the first summary to be longer. Actually, it's beneficial for us, even though our final edit won't include so much detail. Starting off with a condensed version like this will train our memory to remember the details, regardless of what our final edit looks like. So if a foreign friend has further questions, we will most probably still remember the answers from our first draft. But now, we must try to shorten it further, to almost half the length. It might seem impossible, but we have done it before. And at times like this, it's important to consider what the overall meaning of the story is and the most important lesson that we can learn from the tale. Is the lesson we draw from this story about where we should or shouldn't buy a home? Does the tale teach us that we should choose an occupation such as weaving, which can be practiced wherever one lives? Does the story suggest that we should allow our mother to choose whom we associate with, as Mencius's mother did? No, none of the above. So what do the audience really need to grasp from this story? What is the underlying aims of our work during these sessions? Yes, it's to help foreign people understand exactly why Chinese culture and traditions are what they are in the current climate. More specifically, why is it that parent-child relationships are so strong and intense? Why would parents sacrifice their happiness in order to increase their children's chances of success? Why is it that children feel pressured to make their parents proud? That is what you should consider when creating your final summary. You have 10 minutes to create a 250-word summary of our story. I'll see you in 10 minutes. Go. Welcome back. How did you do? Did you manage to condense it to 250 words? I'm going to show you my version. Let's see if ours are similar. From an outsider's perspective, Chinese relationships between children and parents can be considered intense and complicated. Parents will sacrifice whatever is necessary in order to ensure that offspring are given fulfilled and successful futures. In return, children will be expected to excel, devoting their childhoods to study and aiming at the highest achievements. If a child does not succeed, parents will feel a sense of failure, and in turn, the children will sense disappointment. But where does this culture originate from? The story of Mencius's mother moves 3 times may be part of the explanation for it. For thousands of years, China has followed the moral teachings of Confucius. Mencius was a follower of Confucius, and a story is told about his devoted mother. Living amongst the wrong people in deprived or morally inept areas, Mencius couldn't thrive. She didn't believe that it would give her son the best chance of success, and so she sacrificed their livelihood, stability, and her own happiness to move 3 times. When they finally were content with their surroundings, Mencius became lazy and complacent. His mother was angry, and whilst weaving, she cut her precious piece of cloth in 2, stating, "Your giving up your studies is like cutting the cloth halfway through. Your previous efforts are wasted." Upon sensing his mother's disappointment, Mencius devoted himself to his studies in order to satisfy her. This traditional Chinese story reminds us that mother's teaching and son's filial duty play crucial roles in any successful family. Okay, this is my answer, and I believe that this summary really encapsulates the essence of the story. We can see from this brief tale how China's traditions and beliefs have been passed down through the generations, and some reasons why family relations are as they are today. This isn't just a story. I see the devotion of Chinese parents in every school that I teach, and I see the drive and motivation to make their parents happy in every child that I teach. It is a story that is taught from the ages in China, and it is certainly a cultural behaviour that many non-Chinese families could learn from. And this is where you come in. It's lunchtime, and we are going to have a conversation in the college yard. Imagine that you are talking to your friends about your childhood, and they bring up the topic of parents. Remember, everyone has their own opinions, and everyone has had their own experiences as a child, which might be very different. I'm not asking you to divulge every detail of your childhood. Simply, you can try to include the story of Mencius and his mother somewhere in your answers to the questions I am about to pose. Take some time to think about your answers now. When you are ready, press play, and I'll come back as your foreign college friend. As always, press pause when you see the white background and the questions on the screen, so you have enough time to answer the questions in detail. Okay, here are the questions. Good luck. Hey, how are you? How have your college lessons been today so far? Mine were okay. Geography was a bit boring. I've had 6 hours of geography already this week. I think the teacher sees me more than my family. Do you spend a lot of time with your family? Who do you spend the most time with? What do you do together? Why do you spend the most time with that person?
I spend most time with my family. My parents take great interest in my studies and are always asking about what I'm learning. But I think I spend most time with my sister. She and I always play together because I'm not often allowed to go to other friends' houses.
Okay, cool. Yes, I see my sister a lot, but my mum and dad always work. I never really saw them a lot as a kid. They did everything they could to support me, but we weren't that close. How about you? What kind of relationship have you got with your parents? Are they quite relaxed, or do they put pressure on you to do well?
They are not relaxed at all. They always put a lot of pressure on me to get very high marks at school. Whenever I get home, they will check my coursework, assignments, and will not allow me to do anything else until they are done. Of course, they do this out of concern for me. They want me to do all that I can to succeed.
Yeah? Do you think that's a good thing? What do you think are the benefits of having such encouraging and devoted parents?
Well, I think it has given me a drive to succeed. Knowing that I have so much support also makes me feel wonderful.
I agree. Do you think there are disadvantages of this?
Well, I suppose that sometimes I wish I had more time to myself.
So, you've told me before that most Chinese families are like this, but why? Where did you learn this culture from?
Well, I think one of the ways we get this idea is from a story about Mencius'Mother. There's a story about how she moved 3 times to get a good environment for her son.
Mencius, you say? Can you tell me a bit more about him and the story you mentioned, please?
Mencius was one of China's greatest philosophers. His father died when he was young, so he was brought up by his mother. When he was young, his mother felt that they weren't living in a good environment, so she kept moving house. Each place had something wrong. For example, one was near some butcher shops, and Mencius started copying the way how the butchers carved meat. Another place was near a market, and Mencius kept copying how the salesman customs haggled. Finally, she found a place near a school, which was a much nicer environment.
Mencius's mother sounds like a very devoted parent. I bet the whole family is like that in China though, right? Grandparents, fathers, mothers, older siblings. Do you think the strength of strong family bonds impacts on the strength of Chinese society? Why or why not?
I think that is definitely so. Parents are supposed to be devoted to their children. The children are dutiful to their parents. It means that from an early age, we learn to think about our lives and needing to be lived for other people, not only for ourselves. That is a very good foundation for a strong society, I think.
It sounds like Confucius and Mencius have impacted China greatly, especially on how the families are bonded together. Thank you so much for telling me this story. It's really interesting to learn about some of the similarities and differences between our cultures. Right, that was the bell. We'd better be getting back to class. See you soon.